Hi everyone, welcome to my Persian Corner. My name is Panta, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at how to form the past tense in Persian. So we'll look at some examples, go over the grammatical rules, and towards the end of the video, I'll have some pronunciation tips for you that are related to the past tense. Sorry about my voice today if it's a little bit lower than usual or a little bit stuffed. I'm sort of getting over a cold. Before we get started, my usual request that if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do take a moment to hit the subscribe button. It's right under this video, and next to it there's a bell that you can hit to be notified whenever I release a new video. You have the option to be notified for all of the videos, some of them, or even none of them. But just subscribing to this channel is a great way to support it and support these free Persian lessons for everyone, as well as help this channel be seen more on YouTube. So thank you so much for your continued support. And now let's go ahead and get started with today's lesson. All right, so as usual, we're going to start with some examples so that if this is a new grammar for you, maybe you can guess what the rule is before we look at the rule together. All right, our first example. جمعه شب تئاتر رفتم. On Friday night, I went to the theater. شنبه صبح ساعت 7:30 پا شدم و قهوه درست کردم. Saturday morning, I got up at 7:30 and I made coffee. چون هوا خوب بود، بعد از صبحونه تو پارک قدم زدم. Because the weather was nice after breakfast, I took a stroll in the park. شام پیتزا خوردم و فیلم تماشا کردم. I had pizza for dinner and watched a movie. ساعت 10 خوابیدم. I slept at 10. So here's a look at all of our verbs together. رفتم، پا شدم، بود، درست کردم، قدم زدم، خوردم، خوابیدم. So here we have the infinitive on the right side and the past tense on the left side. So looking at these two side by side, can you guess what the rule is on how to form the past tense in Persian? Yeah, I'm sure you got it. We simply remove the ending from the infinitive, that an sound, and we add the ending according to the person. So raftan, we remove the nun at the end, and for I, we replace it with a mim. Raftan, raftam. I put a box around bud because you'll notice that this was for hava. Hava khub bud. The weather was nice. So the weather is it. Third person singular has no ending. It's essentially just the root. So to form the past, we remove that infinitive ending an, and we're left with the root of the past tense. And then we just add the ending for the person. So the past root, as I mentioned, is essentially the third person singular form, like we saw with the example bud, because there is no ending, right? So let's look at some examples. Gereften, to get, this is our infinitive. What would be the past root? Good, we just remove the an and we get gereft. And that's also our third person singular, u gereft, right? He, she, it, got. Dashten, to have. What's the past root? Dasht, good. That's also u dasht, he, she, it had. And shikastan, to break. Great. Shikast, also u shikast, he, she, it broke. So you'll notice that forming the past root is pretty regular, unlike the present tense. The present tense, you just have to know what the root is. So forming the past tense is actually a lot more straightforward. I've created a reference guide of 56, I believe, of the most common simple Persian verbs, because we know that from the simple verbs, we can form the compound verbs. So if you know these simple verbs, then you can form a huge chunk of verbs in Persian to include compound verbs. So I've created this reference. It's available for purchase on my Etsy store. It's essentially the infinitive, the present root, past root, and then past participle form. It's about a 7-page reference guide. If you're interested in checking that out, I will put the link in the description box below this video for you. I think it'll be a good reference, something handy to keep around while you study Persian. Okay, let's review all of the endings together. Let's take our example, raftan, to go. We know that the past root is raft. So we say raftam, rafti, raft, raftim, raftin, raftan. For the shoma form in spoken Persian, you know we drop that d sound at the end. So raftid sounds like raftin. For the unha form, again, we drop that d sound at the end. So raftand sounds like raftan. And that's the spoken form. To form the negative, we simply add the prefix na. For example, naraftam, narafti, naraft, naraftim, naraftin, naraftan. If I were to take these examples that I gave at the beginning of the video and make them negative, for example, ta'at naraftam, pa nashodam, hava khub nabud, qahve durust nakardam, to park qadam nazadam, sham nakhordam, nakhabidam, right? All right, an exception. Our verb danistan. So I've highlighted the on here because we know that when there's an on sound in words, typically in spoken Persian, they're pronounced un, right? I've mentioned this in another video, like John, Jun, non, nun. So here, danistan in spoken Persian, dunistan. All right, if we're following this rule that we learned, how would we form the past root of danistan? Yeah, it would just be danist, right? So following that pattern, we would say danistam, danisti, danist. But nobody really says that. I think I've only heard that in a Humayun Shajarian song where he says danistam ke. And that makes sense because, I mean, he's singing Persian literature. So nobody really says that. What we do is we take this root, but then we also add this prefix mi. So we typically say midunestam, midunesti, midunest, midunestim, midunestin, midunestan. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say donestam ke or dunesti ke. فردا بارون میاد. No, میدونستی. This is an exception. Okay, a couple of pronunciation tips here. Typically, in Persian, infinitives are stressed on the last syllable, on that an sound. When we conjugate verbs, we stress the next to last syllable, right? Stress is pretty predictable in Persian. I'm focusing on these two forms here because you'll notice that, okay, here on the right, I have the infinitive. On the left, I have the shoma, the anha, they form. So the correct written form is what's in parentheses, raftand. But as I mentioned earlier, in spoken Persian, we drop the d sound at the end and we just say raftan. So in informal writing, as you might see in text messages, on social media, etc., people write the way they speak. So they might write raftan for they, una raftan. And that ends up looking like the infinitive. So what's the stress here? Infinitives always stressed on the last syllable. رفتن, بودن, خوردن, خوابیدن. But for they, it would be رفتن, بودن, خوردن, خوابیدن, خوابیدن, right? Next to last syllable. The stress pattern is going to be the same for the other conjugated forms as well. I'm just focusing on these two because they end up looking alike in informal writing, okay? So compare these two, the infinitive, رفتن, آنها رفتن. بودن, بودن. خوردن, خوردن. خوابیدن, خوابیدن, right? Next to last syllable. So compare خوردن to eat, خوردن, they ate. When it comes to compound verbs, it's the same. Infinitives always stressed on the last syllable. But when we conjugate it, the non-verb part is going to be stressed on the last syllable, and then the verb is kind of stressed evenly. So again, infinitives, last syllable. پا شدن, درست کردن, قدم زدن, right? But when we conjugate it, پا شدم, or پا شدن. And actually, this isn't the greatest example because we end up stressing شو, پا شدن. But the other two. درست کردن, right? We're stressing the last syllable of درست. درست کردن. قدم زدن. This might be intuitive, but just in case it's not. So let's compare them side by side. پا شدن, پا شدن. Again, this wasn't the best example. These are better. درست کردن, درست کردن. قدم زدن, قدم زدن. Okay? If the word is negative, that prefix na gets the stress. نرفتم, پا نشدم, نبود, درست نکردن, قدم نزدن, نخوردم, نخوابیدم. And the prefix می also gets stress. میدونستم, میدونستی, میدونست, میدونستیم. And even in the present tense, میدونم, میدونی. I think at some point I'll do a video on word stress in Persian. It is worth reviewing because unlike English, Persian word stress in Persian is quite predictable and regular. So I think I'll put those all together in one video for you. And that's it for our lesson on how to form the past tense in Persian. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end. I hope it was useful for you. And if it was, please give this video a thumbs up. Again, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to check out that reference guide of all the verbs. In case you're interested, I'll leave the link for you in the description box below. And thank you so much for joining. I'll see you very soon in future lessons. And until then, فعلا خداحافظ.